Hey there, it's PK Beats, and this is actually the 50th episode in the Random Facts series. I don't have a special episode or plan for that, I'm just putting it out. I'll just talk about it at the end of the episode. You should be sure to stick around too, because I've got a neat new way to crash your game around that part of the video as well. But as for interesting stuff right now, Jim Von Mailin asks, what happens if you use Rage Drive in my Infinite Portal setup? What happens with Heaven's Door is it'll automatically be cancelled after not too long. And this was with 0 inputs from anyone, by the way. And this is the same with Rage Drive, and it actually goes for the same distance too. So the amount of damage either of the characters has doesn't seem to affect the move's duration. What is very interesting though is that if Rage Drive gets automatically interrupted like this, it won't actually get rid of Rage, like it normally would when you land Rage Drive. And it doesn't seem to remove from the rage point count either, as when I whiff grab 5 times here, he still has it. I went more in depth on the mechanics of Kazu's rage in my last Random Facts video, so you can check that out later if you want to know more. But basically all you need to know right now is that you can only whiff one of Rage Drive's inputs 5 times, and the next time you whiff will remove rage. So the fact that I can grab 5 times here means that the first Rage Drive from before didn't do anything to the point count. And I can use Rage Drive again, this time with the special input, and have it get interrupted and still have rage. So it's pretty interesting that having Rage Drive get grab released like this doesn't actually count towards the rage point system. I guess it is ultimately really unlikely that this would happen anyways in any normal circumstances, but it's still pretty cool to know. And speaking of cool things to know, Lost Ribosome asks 2 questions that I think are both interesting enough to cover here. The first one being today's title and thumbnail question. What happens when Kazuya uses Devil Blaster against 7 opponents? This question comes from the mechanic Sakurai described, where the beam will actually get weaker for each subsequent player it hits. So just how weak can the Devil Blaster get? Considering I do not own 7 controllers, I opted to just put 7 level 1 CPUs on the team, and I made them all Donkey Kong since he has a huge hurt box. And given that the position was perfect the moment the match started, it didn't take long to realize that the beam will actually disappear after it hits 3 people. So we see here that the third Donkey Kong had 5.7% dealt to him, which would be about half the percent that the first Donkey Kong got, being 11.5%. There are some cases where more than 3 opponents got hit though, like right here, 4 of them got hit instead. This is likely just because 2 got hit by the final part of the laser at the same time. But in this case, the last 2 DKs hit by the laser had the same percent dealt to them, that being 4.5%. The math will tell you that the second to last DK had 4.6% dealt to him, but it's likely this is just some shenanigans with the percent in the hundreds place, another topic we've covered on this channel before. And obviously this percent is lower than the 5.7% earlier due to staling. So there you go. To summarize, the laser can only go through 2 opponents, and the third opponent will stop the laser. And while multiple opponents can get hit by that final laser part, they'll take the same amount of damage, meaning the weakest that Devil Blaster can get is about half the normal damage, not including staling of course. Out of curiosity, I decided to test out the Ice Climbers too, which was a little bit harder since they're shorter than Devil Blaster, but it seems that Nana also counts as a character in this case, as if you look here, the beam has gone away, and yet only 2 primary characters took damage. And you can see here that in the distance a secondary Ice Climber gets sniped, being the third to get hit, and then the beam disappears. So the secondary Ice Climber will add to this count. So furthermore, I wanted to see if the damage was also different when dealt to this secondary Ice Climber. Here's the setup I used. I just used Devil Blaster over and over again against the Ice Climbers, to where it hit both of them until the primary one got to 100%. Then I gave them the Fairy in a Bottle. You see, if you pick up the Fairy in a Bottle when under 100%, it just acts like a throwable item. But if you pick it up when at or above 100%, it will heal you. And looking at our tests before, the second person to get hit by Devil Blaster will usually take about 0.75 times the base amount, which is how we get from 11.5% to 8.6% here on this earlier test with DK. So what this means is that if Nana was truly taking less damage like what normally happens with the move, even though the primary Ice Climber would be at 105% and thus able to heal, Nana should be at about 79% and thus not able to heal from the Fairy in the Bottle. And actually there's one more thing you need to do to really truly test this, and that is make them big enough to where they can get hit from outside of point blank range, and then have them run before getting hit, and I'll explain why in a bit. When you do this, Popo will heal from the Fairy in the Bottle, but Nana will just pick it up. meaning their percents are different, meaning yes, Nana, or whichever one is your secondary Ice Climber, will take less damage from the Devil Blaster, as usual. Now the reason why I specified the whole running bit is because if you do this test as you'd expect to, and as I originally did, with them just next to each other, you'll see that Nana actually ends up healing at the same time as Popo, meaning that they took the same amount of damage. The reason for this is simply because they're too close here. And because they're so close, I suppose they just end up getting hit with the same quote-unquote hitbox of the laser, and thus just end up taking the same amount of damage. When in reality, as long as the secondary Ice Climber is slightly away from the primary one, the laser's damage fall off will work as normal. Also, that second question in the prompt I'm covering. It asks if the laser found in Kazuya's up throw also has this property where the damage gets reduced, and so on. This was something I also wondered too, since his up throw laser is, you know, the same as neutral special. And with the help of Battlefield, this is actually pretty easy to test. And here we see that, yes, the first Mario to get hit took 10%, the second took 7.5%, you know, subtracting the damage from the first part of the throw, and the third one took 5%. So the up throw laser follows the same rules. Furthermore, you can see visually here that the laser disappears after hitting the third player. But just to be sure, I tested this with Ice Climbers, and the laser hits these three, and doesn't even scratch the other two above, which also confirms that mechanic. And just because I can mention it here, if you were to do this setup with someone like DK whose hurtbox is huge, you'll see that the first two of them get hit are both taking 10%. You know, again subtracting the damage from the first part of the throw to this DK. And the last one getting hit will take 5%. This tells us two things. One, that yes, it is indeed possible for characters to get hit at the same exact time and take the same exact damage from the laser, even if it's not that final hit. And two, that even if two players get hit at the same time, and thus take the same damage, the next one to get hit will take half the damage instead of 0.75 times, meaning the number of players hit total is still counted. It was actually in this test that I realized that maybe my testing with the Ice Climbers earlier was wrong, which led me to realizing that my other testing method was better, so I'm kinda glad I spotted that before giving all misinformation like that. Anyhow, that's enough about Kazuya's lasers, huh? Next up, Josh Hurst asks what happens if Kazuya wins on a team in regards to the victory screen announcer's line. For those of you who don't know, Kazuya has a unique quirk to where his victory screen has no music in the background, and its announcer gets replaced with the one from Tekken.
Kazuya Mishima wins.
Yes, this is all a certified Tekken reference. But what happens if you win a team match? Does the Tekken announcer come back? And what happens is this.
Red team wins!
So no, we get the same old announcer as usual, but there's still no fanfare playing for him. So that much is still unique, but there you go. Next, Supreme Chaos Being gives me a fact regarding the training mode combo meter in some of Kazuya's moves. This actually pertains to his throws, but if you use each of his throws in slow motion with the combo counter on, you might notice that more hits get registered than you'd intuitively think. For his back throw, there should be just one hit, but two appear in the combo counter. For his forward throw, there's only 2 kicks happening, but 3 hits seem to happen, and so forth. His up throw seems to be the only one that's completely intuitive. So looking at things even closer, with his back throw, the first hit happens and deals 16.8%. But then the next frame, a second hit happens that actually doesn't even deal any damage at all, despite the combo counter not actually updating to say this. Looking at this frame, it seems to be the first frame where Ryu here is actually getting launched. Looking at the other throws, something very similar happens with down throw, where the first hit happens and deals 8.4%, but the following frame, another random hit gets registered from somewhere, this time actually dealing damage with 1.2%, and once again it seems to be the launching hit of sorts. With his forward throw, the first kick does 6%, as does the second kick, but then a couple of frames later, not just one, a third and final hit gets registered and deals 2.4%. And with his input grab, the first 2 hits are normal, then a frame after the second hit, another hit happens that deals 1.2%, yada yada. So it seems that for whatever reason, Kazuya's throws outside of up throw are programmed to have an additional hit happen at the same time his animation sort of changes, as if it's the same frame that the opponent is getting launched. Now, why this needs to not only exist, but sometimes deal damage and sometimes not, I'm not sure. It doesn't feel very intuitive at all for this to count as a separate hit, but it's there. And I'm sure they had their reasons, you know, so there you go. Before I move on from Kazuya, I guess I should mention his reflect kick, huh? Normally reflectors do like 1.3 times the amount of damage of the normal projectile, up to about 2 times the damage. Like Charge Shot here normally does about 33%, But with the Franklin badge, which is a pretty basic reflector, it now does 43%, which is about a 1.3 times increase. And with Nessa's side smash, it does 67%, which is a 2 times increase. And the side smash is like the strongest reflector, by the way, which is tied with the home run bat, as these double the base damage and such. Then you go to Kazu's reflector, and it does 80% and instantly KOs, which is a 2.4 times increase in power. This is by a far margin the strongest reflector in the game, to where if he actually reflects something and you get hit by that, you're probably dead. I don't know why. The input for this move is not difficult at all. It's just crazy strong. Is that also a Tekken reference? Anyhow, that's all I have for Kazuya for now, but I do want to go over some more things today. I guess since these things revolve around the Miis, who were given plenty of attention this update, you could say, that still works out, right? Anyhow, first up, Examinee623 on Twitter gave me a very interesting prompt regarding the Mii Brawlers flashing Mach Punch. Basically, with this special attack, the first several hits of these punches seem to have huge priority. I think the easiest way to visualize is by using Dragoon here in slow motion. Did you notice how in the slowdown, Sephiroth actually did get launched, but then afterwards you see that he's still being stuck in Mii Brawler's flashing Mach Punch. I don't think I have to go in depth about the mechanics of this game to tell you why this looks weird. For a few specifications, this seems to work for anything really, even like the home run bat. I just use Dragoon because it's a good visualizer. Also, slowing down the game is not mandatory, it still works like this at normal speed. I just slowed it down to again make it easier to visualize. And this won't work if you do this after only a few punches have hit. You've got to do it after like 5 punches or so for this insane priority to take place. But overall, yeah, this is pretty bonkers. So have fun testing various strong moves out and see how they get ruined. Especially since if you do it with a final smash like this, they'll be delayed in the process of getting into that final smash, you know? That's pretty cool. And lastly for this video, Skully on my Patreon exclusive Discord server had done some testing about a certain game crashing glitch regarding Mii Brawler's flashing Mach Punch. Basically, all you gotta do is slow Mii Brawler down, have him initiate flashing Mach Punch on you, and since he's slowed down, you'll be able to dodge his final hits, and once you've dodged it, after that final hit happens, just try to grab him. And now it does seem like the slowdown effect is optional, but it's what makes the glitch way easier to pull off. You can do this setup with a superstar, but it only works if you get it like right before the final hit would happen, when this animation happens. But if you time it right here and grab after falling out, the game will still crash. So it just seems like as long as you somehow grab Mii Brawler during this part of the animation, the game crashes. So you might be wondering why I'm not just using a third party? Well, the reason for that is if you try to grab the Mii Brawler while they're pummeling someone else, either your grab won't work, or you'll just grab them normally. It seems that for whatever reason, this crash only happens when the person Mii Brawler was supposed to launch ends up doing the grabbing here. Now, Skully was diligent enough to test many different types of grabs to see if they do or don't work. So here's the chart that he ended up making, so you can refer to that if you'd like. But overall, the only exceptions to this glitch that we noticed were Incineroar's Alolan Whip and Steve's Minecart. So outside of that, other grabs will also crash the game. This move is really weird, but I like that in a move. And I think that's it for today's video. I'd like to thank my many gorgeous patrons Nestor Franco, Sashanks, Skully, Burbo, Hobo King Niklz, Raighne, Sylveon700, TheRealFxdeYT, BG, Daneplay, Feurolant, Keko the Dragon, Blizzwell, Danish Toast, Gabrielle Gabby, Jigs, Narf2043, Rusty Rants YouTube, Sky, and Stan Luna. God, Stan, who even is Luna? Luna? Whatever. Anyways, yeah, like I said, this was the 50th episode in the Random Facts series. I decided not to do anything crazy or huge for this because I don't think that's really necessary. We're all coming here for the same reason as before, to see interesting facts about Smash Ultimate, so that really shouldn't change. You know, to try and make this episode quote-unquote special would sort of imply that the other episodes are subpar, which I don't think should be the case. And I mean, also I just couldn't come up with anything, but we'll just ignore that. How much longer will this series go for this specific game? Who can say? But I'm certainly going to keep enjoying every episode, as I hope you all continue to do as well. I will say there's a chance that uploads will be slightly more scarce, or at the very least I'll be doing less of the experimental videos going forward, as I do want to start focusing even more on my Japanese studies. But we'll see how I feel in the future, you know? I think I'm just going to stick to what I know now, that being video essays and the likes, and we'll just see where we get taken. So with that, thank you for your continued support over the last couple of years with this series and my channel, and I hope you continue supporting me in the future. Keep up the good work, stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.